All right, I got an old school question for you. It amazes me, and then sometimes it doesn't amaze me, that this question still comes up. And the question is, do I need to go to church? So let me just break it down structurally, Bible. And the Old Testament, before Jesus came, salvation was offered within the tabernacle. You brought your sacrifices, the priest. There was a requirement that you came into the temple. Bounce to the New Testament. Jesus fulfills the Old Testament, and salvation is extended to Gentiles and Jews alike. And Jesus began to send out his disciples, his apostles and the disciples out. And the word we use today is evangelize all over. So people began to get saved where they were. So once the disciples went out, people were saved wherever they were met. On the road, on the side, in the mountains, wherever they were met. Salvation was offered. They prayed. They explained that Jesus died for them. And that's where salvation came. So, to answer the question, you don't have to go to church to get saved. Wherever God meets you, he meets you. But what happens after the revelation of salvation, that God has revealed himself to you, you begin to seek out the fellowship of the saints. And you go to church. So the question, I think, still comes up because people get saved on TV. There's great evangelism on TV. And then when they go out to the local congregation, they find one of the churches that are mentioned throughout the scriptures that has fallen in a backslidden state. So for the new believer, it becomes a stumbling block to them. That is the importance that the church do right in the public space. Because people are saved where they're at, and then they come there, and then they'll find, like Paul goes through Ephesians, Corinthians, all the churches were broken. He was talking about come back to the mark. The book of Revelation goes church after church after church. So I think that's why the question still comes up. People get saved where they are, and then they go out, joyfully looking for the fellowship and get to a congregation, and it's the church, a lot of nonsense going on.